This video is on nested if statements. So this is when you solve a problem by writing an if statement inside of another if statement. To illustrate how this works, we're going to look at this example here. We're going to ask the user if they have a horse or a fly, and then ask the age. If it's a horse, and if it's 10 or older, we're going to say it's old. Otherwise, the horse is young. That's if it's a horse. And then if it's a fly, if it is 1 or older, we're going to say it's old. Otherwise, we're going to say the fly is young. So from the very start, we're going to ask the user what type of animal it is. We're going to ask what type of animal, and we're going to ask the age. And then, if it's a horse, so it could be a horse, yes or no. If it is a horse, then we're going to check if it is greater than or equal to 10. Is it over 10? Is it 10 or older? And if the answer is yes, then we're going to say old. Okay, so we're going to ask what kind of animal it is, what's its age, and then if it is a horse and it's greater than or equal to 10, we're going to say it's old. If it is a horse and it's not greater than or equal to 10, we're going to say it is young. If it is not a horse, then we're going to assume it's a fly. And then we're going to check and see, is it greater than or equal to 1? And if it is, if the answer to that is yes, then we're going to say that it is old. Because if it's 2, that would be young for a horse, but old for a fly. And then if it is not greater than or equal to 1, then we're going to say it is young. So we call this a flow chart, just to sort of plan out what we're doing. We're going to ask what type of animal and then ask the age. So let's just do that first here. So animal equals input, what type of animal? And then age equals input, how old? Now, because we want to do a little bit of math with age, we want to check its value. We're going to convert it into an integer. So age equals int age. This is very important because we want that greater than or less than if statement to work properly. Now, I've asked what type of animal it is. I've asked the age. Now I want to check if it's a horse, because if it is, I want to look at whether or not it's 10. So my first if statement is going to be if animal is a horse. Now notice there's always 2 equal signs in an if statement. And also notice when I hit enter, my cursor is now tabbed over. We have to be tabbed in after that first if statement. So if the animal is a horse, now I want to check. So if the answer is yes, if it is a horse, I want to check if it's greater than or equal to 10 years old. So now if age is greater than or equal to 10. So you see where the cursor is here? It will only get there. It'll only run the code there if the animal is a horse and if the age is greater than or equal to 10. Then if that's the case, we're going to print that's an old horse. Now, we've got to use double quotes for that apostrophe to show up. So I'm encasing this whole thing inside double quotes so that my apostrophe works as my single quote. There you go. So now I've completed asking the type of animal, asking the age, and then determining if it's a horse, yes. If it's yes, if it's over 10, then we say it's old. Okay. So how about here? What if it's not over 10? I'm going to write else right here. And if it's not over 10, then I'm going to print the horse is young. Now, how do I know it's a horse here? So if you look closely, if our animal's a horse, then we're checking the age, and we're comparing, we're looking at the age here. If the animal is not a horse, then it's never going to get here. The only way we're right here is if that animal's a horse. Because if it's not, I've got else over here. Look very closely at the indentation, because we see else written here and else written there. This else goes with this if. That else at the very end goes with that first if up here. You can see that by the way they're lined up. And you need, whenever you write the word else, it will be attached to the if statement directly above it. I said whenever, there's an exception if we use elif, but we're not doing that in this example. So what have I done here? I've now completed this part, and that else brings me over here. That else, this else here, the one that I'm highlighting here, that else corresponds to this one here. That's if it's not a horse. And if it's not a horse, we assume it's a fly because those are the only two things we asked. So then we're going to check if it is greater than or equal to 1. So under that else, if I hit enter, see how I'm tabbed over here? Now, if age is greater than or equal to 1, then we're going to assume that we have a fly, and if it's greater than or equal to 1, the fly is old. So print the fly is old. Else. So the else is now if it is not. So that Y stands for yes. So if this is true, yeah, we print it's old. If it's not, so if we have a fly, and we're only in this branch if we don't have a horse, which means we have a fly. So if we are in this branch because we don't have a horse, so we have a fly, and it is not greater than or equal to 1, it's less than 1, then we're going to say the fly is young. Okay, let's give this a try now. What type of animal? Horse. How old? 13. That's an old horse. So what happened here is, was the animal a horse? Yes. So now we are here. We're looking at this block that's indented right after that if statement. Is the age greater than or equal to 10? Yes. So we printed this statement. Let's just try it again. What type of animal? So let's say we have a fly. So now we are here because the question was, what type of animal? Now, is that animal a horse? The answer is no, so we're under this else condition. And notice this if and this else go together. See how they're lined up? How old? So let's say our fly is 0 years old. So now we are not greater than or equal to 1, so we're now under this else condition. So it should say the fly is young. And it does. So a nested if statement works when you have an if statement within an if statement. See how I have a flow chart here that branches off, and then from each branch we can get 2 more branches. It's basically the if and the else. And then within that I've got another if and I've got another else. in the code here. To put an if statement within an if statement in Python, you indent and then you double indent. So this line here, printing that that's an old horse, will only happen, this code will only be written if the age is greater than or equal to 10, and that'll only be checked if the animal's a horse. If the animal's a horse and the age is not greater than or equal to 10, we're going to be here. If the animal is not a horse, we're going to be here, meaning it'll run this line here. If it is not a horse and the age is greater than or equal to 1, it's going to print the fly is old. Else, so that is if it is not a horse and the age is not greater than or equal to 1, then it'll print the fly is young. A couple things to watch out for, a couple places where you could possibly make a mistake. Notice there's a double equal sign here. Whenever you check to see if something is equal to something, you need a double equal sign. Also, don't forget this line here. Whenever you type input in from the keyboard, it comes in as what we call a string. That's one character after another after another. But if you want to do a little bit of math to it, such as check to see if it is greater than or equal to a certain number, then you must convert it to either an integer or a float.